My name is Walter Douglas Hamlin, and I'm the wine director for Oakville Grocery, Oakville Wine Merchant. I've been in this industry, the wine industry, for just about 10 years. Since I was able to sip wine legally, I've been working in this industry. The sun has just gone down over the Mayacamas mountain range to my left, and which was coming through some shades. So now this kind of blue, yeah, and it's in about 40 minutes, the whole skyline will be pink and purple. I manage two physical locations, well, really three, two stores that are boutique wine and food stores, really popular lunch spots, and for wine purveyors to come and check out new things. And then I manage a tasting room. So my daily really starts off very simply walking the shelves, checking out what might need to be faced or better represented on the floor. Then it's working with my staff. I've got a small sales team, so we go over kind of the daily duties or the daily sales goals. Those are always important to remind each other what the focus is for the day. Then it goes, I mean, because we're also an online, a small online entity at the moment, an online shop, we're packing boxes, shipping out wines, calling customers is a big one for us. Since we're still small, we're contacting our best customers, letting them know that, the new wines that might be out, or just really when their packages are going to come, anything in between. Then after that, typically wanting to be on the floor for lunch and be with guests. In that way, our tasting room's always open. So walking through the tasting room that you see behind me and tasting with guests. Then typically I spend my afternoons writing for my e-commerce channel. So I do a few emails a week out to a large audience. So I try to find a fancy way to dress up a new red wine or white wine or somewhere in between. And then I, spend a good amount of time on usually a few set days tasting, which is a really fun bit of the job. Obviously, that's a big draw for a lot, is tasting wines from all over, worldly. And then here in Napa and Sonoma is my focus because that's where I'm located. So my afternoons are typically working deals and finding the new next best thing. And then the evening is always filled with fun emails and following up with either guests and or the folks I'm trying to buy wine from. But a day in the shoes is pretty busy, and it can tend to be long. Formal education is always nice to have. It's always maybe a foot in the door on your resume, but it's not necessary, especially in the wine industry. There's lots of people at the top of their companies, at wineries, in sales gigs, in a wine director position. A lot of it has to do with writing and the connections that you have and things like that. So if you're a personable person and you're connected in some way or another just by working. I mean, it could be through starting out at a restaurant, and then looking to do a little bit of education like a sommelier-based training or a wine and spirits education training. That's really important because that puts you, leaps ahead of somebody else that might not know much about wine going for the same position because they have a sales background. So it's not necessary. I have a Bachelor of Arts in communication and a minor in Spanish. Um, and not a lot of that I use it, with the exception of the writing background. I do write a lot, so um, that's something that if you focused on that key piece and looked into wine and spirits education of some sorts, say that's probably enough. However, had I done things over again, I might have studied more of wine education in college. And a lot of what that is viticulture studies, winemaking. I mean, right next to us is Davis, which is perhaps one of the best schools for viticulture. Fresno, also a really good school. So there's schools right here in California that probably would have done me better. But I landed on my feet. This industry I chose because of people. Uh, it started off as a weekend gig at a tasting room, and it was always just because of people and really nothing else. So I had met, a few people that just loved the job. People, people, people is only people. No, wine was a big draw for me as well. But honestly, it's it's about wanting to go the extra mile for somebody. And the appeal to me was always as a server back in the day at a restaurant, I wanted to put that white glove on and give somebody an experience, and treat them, with the utmost respect and go the extra mile. And that was kind of always the appeals that I knew I was going to be around people. I was going to be selling. And at first I didn't really think much about it because it just came so naturally to me and how I had sought out jobs, and it turned into a career. So the big appeal, besides wine, would for me is very simply people. I do work with a lot of people. However, in parts of this industry, depending on what you want to do, it can be very solitary. I used to be a wine representative for a distributor, and they call that dragging the bag in our industry. You literally drag a bag of wine or spirits around to restaurants and retailers. That was one of my first jobs out of college, and I absolutely loved it because I got to work with people, which I desperately wanted to do. But I also got to make my own schedule, and I didn't have to wake up super early, and I could spend my mornings drinking coffee and sending emails and following up with customers. So that actually tended to be pretty solitary because I was in my car a lot driving, um, you know, doing that morning routine of working with wine buyers like myself now, but calling them, emailing them. And so it's kind of whatever you want out of the job, solitary or working with folks, you'll be able to get it. My current position, I'm around people all the time. So from start to finish, is I got a small team and then customers, but uh, it's an appeal for me for sure. To me, it's a lot about listening, and putting yourself in your coworkers' shoes, because we've all been there and we've probably had a terrible boss, and if you haven't yet, you're going to. So it's to me, it's one of those things that I really try to connect with my coworkers and lead them down the path of success by helping any way I can. To me, it's part of the job that um, comes naturally because I've worked with people for so long that it's something if I see something it's incorrect or something I can fix or improve upon, I jump at the opportunity to do so. And I think that is a great leadership quality for people in charge of a small team or a large team, because that typically gets people to stand right next to you and do it with you. So as far as you know leadership qualities that I don't know you want in a job like this, like I said, listening, and because it's a sales oriented job, I think putting you know manageable targets in sales world. There's often this distant target that everybody thinks there's no way we're going to hit that, and a leader, or at least your sales manager, should be one to sit there and say, all right, there's that distant target, but let's put some small cherries along the way and some rungs on that ladder that we can climb, and we'll get there together. And that's what I think really helps a team succeed and hit that faraway target. So it's important. Previous jobs have certainly helped. Working the wine industry is vast and varied. There's so many different things you can do within it. Where I've where I'm at now, managing a team and a few stores and an online entity, it kind of all started with a restaurant position. Working started out as a host and working into a server, and taking that extra step, no matter what. If there's one extra step you can take to make a guest happy, a customer happy, um, they're going to be they're going to be writing you a good Google review and tipping you well and all sorts of things that are right there and tangible. But really, it instilled in me at a young age, and we're talking, I don't know, 16, 17 years old, that if you go the extra mile, it typically pays off. And that white glove service is has a lot to do with, I mean, really any customer service position, whether you're working at Target or Whole Foods or a coffee shop or whatever. Um, this industry can be very similar and take it to that next degree because the people that are my customers are spending a lot of money on wines, which is not a necessity. It's not going to keep them warm at night, and it's not going to pay the school bills, but it's something fun for them to enjoy to pair with food. So really taking my previous positions, those would be the ones that I would recommend the most, and that have helped me the most is you know any type of service job, or for me in particular, restaurant service. Essential for this line of work would be optimism. Sales can really beat down on you a lot, and it's not for everybody because there's a certain level of stress that's always going to be there until the end of the month, and then the next day, the next month starts, and you have that goal all over again. So optimism's a huge one. That's one that will help you indefinitely. Um, Another might be, an attentive listener. If you're an attentive listener, you're going to be a much better leader. You're going to be a much better salesperson, and you're going to be a much better, um, I guess customer service person as well, which is I think really important. So those types of things are really good. Organization in my role has certainly helped me out a lot. Learning how to manage my day simply is one thing that I think I learned how to do really well in college because it's so easy to put off all your homework and all your and all your studying for tests till the night before. But what I learned then and still use a lot today is, all right, I've got 1 million things to do, and I could do that I could start off, today's Friday, I could start off Friday doing all sales, and then I could start Friday off again and do all writing. I could start Friday off again and taste and make connections. But how am I going to manage that all within one Friday? Because I don't have 3 Fridays to do that. So I've got, 8 to 12 hours. So time management and organization has helped, exponentially. Probably just a wine glass and a wine key, you might get through the day. But realistically, I mean, in my position, I need my phone and I need a computer because the writing never stops and the emails never end, and the phone calls, whether it's to a customer or to a winery owner, somebody that you're working out a deal to sell a bunch of wine, it's very important. So nothing in particular, but mainly those three things. It does require some travel, and I can say that really depending on what your job is. So in the wine industry, in my past, I've been, as I said, I was a wine representative, dragging a bag. That I got to go to trade shows, Portugal and France and Italy, and I get to go taste in a huge room full of professionals and winery owners, and I got to manage the importation of those wines, and I mean, incredibly fun. And you get to meet a ton of people. It's on a an adult party that's supposed to be all business, and it starts at 7 a.m. and goes till 12 at night. So that's one of the more fun travel bits, and will certainly come about in my future. But currently, my focus is Napa and Sonoma, and luckily, I live right here. So I get to go out and travel around the valleys, which are all 30 to 60 mile radius that I get to drive around and go see wineries and such. So that's about as most travel as I need. Um, but in the industry, depending on what you're doing, especially if you're running your own shop, you're you're going to find a bit of travel. It's not uncommon. The advantages to this position are, I mean, tasting wine is one of them. That's a big one. That's fun. We do spit everything, so it's not just like it's a drink fest every day. That's common misnomer. Um, but never a dull moment. I think I never wanted to sit behind a desk with two screens and do just that. I have ended up doing that in this position quite a bit because it's not everything that you would think. I'm not always going to wineries every day or something. So as I said, a lot of writing, but that's an advantage to me anyway. No 2 days are the same. A disadvantage there's never enough time. There's just not enough. If you're doing this job right, you're looking at it through the eyes of an entrepreneur. Um, there's always something to do. There's always a new idea, a new email concept, a way to approach a customer, either whether that be through the web or in the store. An end cap of wine, a sales sign, a social email, marketing campaign or something like that. I mean, there's always something to do, which the disadvantage there ends up being just time, for the most part. The money can be great, and at a director level, typically it is. It depends on how big of a program you're running. If you're running a multiple store, or if you can be a wine director of a small, restaurant that's a Michelin star restaurant, right? And so you have the same title, but maybe a lot smaller revenue stream to be pulling from. So you might not get paid the same. I chose retail as a wine director because it's a bigger part of my passion, not the restaurant side, where I can see the world of wines. I can represent them in so many different ways. So pay wise, it is good. 6 digits you can easily hit. And if you own your own shop and you're doing your own, website or something like that, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sky is the limit. There's been a lot of people in this industry that have sold their companies for millions when they started as a wine director and bought a small shop, So it really just depends on how much work you're willing to put into it. But the money can be good and you can easily live off of it, even in California. Stigmas in this industry, it's probably, it's the assumption, right? It's, oh, you're a wine buyer. Okay, so you sit around, you drink all day, wax poetically about the aromas. It smells like raspberries and roses, and that's just sadly not all true, right? There's a lot of work along with it. We taste, but we spit everything. So no, we're not drunk from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. We start after work, or at least you should. Maybe not everybody, but that's a big stigma. I think that misnomer that people assume anyway. The other one is which you do see sometimes, so maybe it's not all false, but is snobby, pretentious people can often be, you know, I guess, tied to this industry because it's a posh product and it's not a necessity. We're talking about daily wines being $50 to $60. There's a very small portion of the population where that is a reality, where a $50 wine is something they're drinking every night, and that kind of lingo comes up, and so unfortunately, stigma along with it is, well, you're just not going to like anything that I have to offer at my home when you visit me in Indiana or whatever, which is just not true. There's something to like about all sorts of wine and spirits, and I think the pretentious behavior is overrated. It's not everybody, but there's certainly some people. To me, are entrepreneurship. If you've got that itch to start something new, there's not a person in this industry, at least at a leadership level, or if they own a winery or a wine brand or whatever, there's not someone in this industry that is not eager to start something new, or shoot, let's throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. So the entrepreneurship gene is in most people, and if it isn't, they're probably not going to last, because there's always got to be a better way or more unique way to sell something or find a connection with somebody. And how do we do that? And how fast can you move? My current employer is well known for hearing an idea and making it happen the next day. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And some organizations I've been in, we sit around the table and we write it all down, and then we study it for a couple of weeks, and we come back and we circle it around again, and we chop it up and we try to dissect it. And then 3 weeks later, God, maybe we missed the boat, and then you don't even start. There's that kind of attitude. But the one of my favorite things is at least an organization or people that can take something, run with it, turn it into a reality. And if you fail, well, welcome to the failures club, because sooner or later you're going to succeed. So that's one of my favorite things, just finding solutions and ways to win. I guess, that alone has made me look at a lot of different industries very differently, because if you look at everything as there might be some way to improve, or there might be some way to attack this and win. There's at least an interesting conversation to be had about it in any industry, I think. So that's my favorite thing. My least favorite thing, poor sales months. Those are not fun to explain to anybody. Usually you can see them coming. Poor customer service situations. Somewhere along the line you messed up, you forgot to follow up. You didn't, I'm speaking in more general sales, phone or email or tasting room or something like that. But even just service, letting somebody down when they took the time to come to you or talk to you or buy your product is never fun to see. And it happens. It happens everywhere. So that's not fun. The long hours is not great. I typically work 10-hour days, sometimes 12, sometimes 6, 7 days a week. It's certain parts of the year when it's really busy. So that can really be taxing. That's a disadvantage, or one of the least favorite things, at least. I love it, but at a certain point, you got to call it a day, start again tomorrow. So that's hard as well. And managing people is not always the most fun. Adults of every age can turn into a child, and you just don't like to see it happen, and you don't feel like you need to babysit people. But sometimes that ends up being a leadership failure as well. So you got to kind of take it on the chest and say, all right, how can I do better? Because obviously leading a group of children, it doesn't seem like fun. Things I wish I would have known would be how much I would be writing. I would have taken way more writing classes and, e-commerce marketing style classes, anything of that, business, business aspect that I really didn't think I'd be doing that much of. I knew I was always going to be in business and working with people. I just didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing. So I wish I had a bit more practice there. The other one is Excel. Uh, I use Excel like elephants drinking water. It's all the time. And I wish I would have taken, loads of classes to learn it better. It is such a boring application until you know how to use it. And then it's the best tool in your bag. So that is something that I wish I worked on a little bit more when I was younger, and still working on today. The question might be, is this a sound industry to be in when the world economy collapses, or disease spreads the land? And is it a safe industry in that regard, that you're going to keep your job if something like that happens? I mean, we're not talking apocalypse here, but I think especially now with COVID happening, that's something important to mention in industries. So my answer to that would be kind of twofold: yes and no. Yes, if you're working in a part of industry that is sales, because in times of despair or financial break, people are probably gonna imbibe, and they're gonna buy alcohol. So if you're in that position in the right, if you're in the ultra fine wine industry of $1,000 bottles, you might not do so well. But if you're somewhere in the middle or on the lower end, you're going to be fine and you're going to more than likely keep your job. Whereas in COVID-19, an unfortunate reality was we had to close all tasting rooms, which, I mean, these are very skilled and typically highly paid individuals pouring wine, talking the talk, but also selling wine. And almost all of them lost their jobs or had to pivot and move around. So that's been difficult to see. So yes, it's a safe industry. We just want to be kind of on the right side of it, if that makes sense. A work-life balance exists. It's up to the individual to allow it and to make sure it happens, right? I think this is fair in a lot of industries. In this one, you know, no matter how crazy the job is or how many stores you might be managing or tasting rooms or people you might be managing, at the end of the day, it's wine. So every once in a while, we got to pinch ourselves and say, it's just wine. It's okay. I can come back tomorrow at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever, and do the job. But it is a lot of time. I spend anywhere between 8 and 12 hours a day, a minimum 5 days a week, if not more. Long vacations tend to be very difficult. Um, Unless it's twofold. If part of my vacation is part of work, then that doesn't hurt, which has definitely happened in the past. But yeah, it's definitely a long days. And if you love it, it's not a big issue. If you've got a family, it tends to be a little harder. So it's really it's about where, in a brand new business, it's very difficult. Once you get established, then you can start to get a bit more, you know, a bit better schedule. There's probably two things you could do. Uh, Work as a server in a restaurant, and a restaurant that has a good wine list and or spirits or beer list or what have you, um, and start learning that stuff. Look into it. Most restaurants will force you to take some sort of menu quiz before you start as a server, so you've got to learn a bit about it. So that if you find a draw to it, what is whiskey made of, or why is one wine $10 and another wine $1,000? What's the difference, and why is that? So starting there is a good way to think about it. Another one, there's a lot of classes you can take online for kind of wine 101 or general wine and spirits education training. There's kind of two main roads you can take, which is sommelier training, more restaurant server based training, tableside manners, but also in-depth knowledge of wine and wine tasting. Then there's the WSET, which is wine spirits education training. And the WSET, which I'm more drawn to, a little bit more sales focused as well as theory focused. You have to learn, a ton about wine regions and wine styles and grapes and varietals. But that on the beginner level, the first, WSET one, that would be a good way to see if you're really into it, and if you enjoy learning about this, or if it's just all right, the maps and the varietals, who cares? Then maybe not for you. But those two things, they're not very expensive, and obviously as a server you get paid. So that's one way to do it without taking up too much time. Something that pulled me to this as a communications and Spanish major in college, which really means good luck. You're going to go out and find something. Um, is it's varied. I mean, if you have a niche in any one of your hobbies or anything that you like, you can find it in the wine industry. If you wanna work as an accountant, you can do that at a winery. You can do that in for a small business in the middle of Chicago. If you want to work as a grower, you want to be a farmer, you want to live out in the land. That's here. It's in the wine industry. That's really what Napa, Sonoma, Burgundy, Champagne. And that's what they are. They're just farming land that is turned into this crazy market. If you want to be a director, you want to taste with people, you can work in a tasting room. You could start a small brand. You be an entrepreneur, and it's it's base level. Let's start something from zero and see where it goes. I mean, most of these people have done that. So it's pretty cool because honestly, anything that you are looking to do, you might be able to find it in the wine industry. So if you have a draw or you want to be around it or you want to be around an industry that can be stressful, but also again, it's just wine. You know, it's something that you can find here. So go for it.